So then, looking back on the last 5 years of our goal of being an apostolic resource community, this goal was the result of Billy Kennedy identifying a number of churches across the Pioneer Network that had the ability to be more than just a good local church, which we are, but have the ability to be able to send teams and be able to serve and strengthen other churches. And he called those churches Apostolic Resource Communities, or resource churches for short. And it was something, when he said it, it was something that we knew was within us. And it helped to call out more of God's heart and God's agenda for us for the next season. So, looking back, 5 years ago, we had already sent our first cross-cultural church planting team to Annecy, with Pete and Miri and the boys going, and Ali and Vicky and Kate joining them for a year. And so Connect Annecy had been planted. Messy Church had already been planted. That's about 6 years old, still going strong with about 100 people coming every single month to hear the gospel in a creative and accessible way. So it was already in us, this ability, this desire to plant and to reproduce. But articulating this goal 5 years ago galvanized us to the next level. And so as a step of faith, I began putting on Leaders' Days, just an open invitation to other church leaders to come for being equipped and encouraged. And we put on prophetic appointments during those days, which many leaders accessed and actually gave them some real sharp insight and hope. And some strategic direction for some churches that are still living in the good of those prophetic appointments. We also officially began to oversee a Pioneer Methodist Connection Church plant up in Hull called Mosaic, with Dina and Mark Button joining us for a couple of leaders' weekends. And I've been going up there and visiting and speaking at the church, regular Skype calls for coaching and mentoring. And then we were approached by a Pioneer Church in Kettering to provide some more care and some more oversight. We also opened up our Ignite course to those across the Church of Loughborough to begin to be served and strengthened by that. Sozo appointments began to serve the wider church. I began serving the Loughborough Church's partnership in the chair role, which actually has provided many opportunities to strengthen the rest of the Church of Loughborough, including 2 Alive festivals over these last 5 years, which has massively boosted the perception of the church that it's alive and together, that we're growing and God is on the move. We also began to talk more about all of us being sent ones. The word apostle means sent. We did a whole teaching series on it. We had a leaders' weekend with Mark Green from LICC, and Ali and I and others have been into a number of workplaces praying and prophesying and commissioning people into their God-given calling, into their workplace to outwork kingdom call into all the different spheres of our society. And then 18 months ago, we sent our second cross-cultural church plant to Anglesey, led by Alan and Rachel Radbourne and joined by the Orsts. This church is called Lighthouse Church and now meets in a community centre in the middle of Anglesey. And they're just going from strength to strength. At the time of filming this, OH1 have just had their summer weekender there. And then this time last year, we planted our third local expression, OH3, led by John and Gwen and a stunning team around them. Their strapline is sharing food, celebrating cultures, and it's the intercultural expression of open heaven. It actually tied in remarkably with a prophetic word that we were given in 2002. This was from Pete Gilbert, and he said, I see 3 phases of open heaven. Firstly, a focus and impact on the campus, tick. Secondly, alongside that, a focus and impact on the town, tick. And then thirdly, coming alongside that, both these strands, a focus and an impact on the nations. So we're now entering into that third phase. I wouldn't be surprised if we plant an OH4 and an OH5 in the next few years. So Loughborough ends up saturated with vibrant, dynamic, missionally focused expressions of church that are bringing the kingdom of heaven to earth. So, over the 5 years, we have gone from 2 churches linking to us as a resource church to 11, ranging from churches in Belfast to Anglesey, Sidcup, Harlington, Lichfield, Burton, Northampton, Coventry, Kidderminster, Hull and Kettering. I've run a leaders learning community for the past couple of years with the leadership teams of those churches all coming together. And the hall is set out so that churches of a similar size sit together, listen to short blocks of content, and then discuss and make plans and feedback to the whole group the next time we meet. I've done a really thought through journey, starting with clarifying mission statements, then going on to look at strategy and goals, then going on to look at values and culture. Here's a recent email from the leader of the Pioneer Church in Northampton. I just wanted to email to say thank you for putting on the Leaders Learning Community Days. Mike and I have found the times really beneficial. We are a lot more organised and focused, having renewed our mission statement, set a vision and explored our values. And then on October the 4th, we'll host our second Pioneer Midlands Evening Celebration, which is a chance for the congregations, not just the leaders, the congregations to come together and celebrate all that God is doing across the 11 churches. So, in summary, we have gone from 2 to 11 churches connecting with us as an Apostolic Resource Church. We have gone from 1 to 2 cross-cultural church plants, Anglesey and Annecy, and we have gone from 2 to 3 local expressions. Churches that can reproduce are healthy churches. Churches that can raise up leaders, can create space, and where mission is the driving principle of why church exists and how we do church. And that is us.
Hi Open Heaven, it's Joe here. I wanted to give you an update on our City of Refuge goal. And for those of you who don't know, the term City of Refuge was rooted in a prophetic word that we received as a church a number of years ago, and you'll find that in the book of Joshua. It references these places where people would go to find safety, who were fleeing basically disaster and just trouble in their life. So we've taken that word really seriously, and we've changed a lot of our culture, I would say, to facilitate what we think God is doing in that. And that looks like a number of different ways. Firstly, it affected the way we operated as a church. It has changed our whole policies and systems, from safeguarding through to children's check-in, the way that we do DBSs. We've just basically strengthened our infrastructure to prepare ourselves for that sort of work. But also it's changed the way we work as a church. When I started working here in 2015, I started to take on, a responsibility for our community engagement work. And over the last few years, that has taken us to a number of different places. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about those things over the next few minutes, and hopefully you'll be really excited about what God has done, what He is doing, and what He will do again. One of the first things that we did as a church was start something called Safe Haven Cafe, and that has been one of the best things that we've probably done. So since 2016, October, when we launched, we have now worked with 52 different families in Charnwood to get around them, support them through their parenting and their mental health, to equip them for life as family. And through that, we've been able to raise up peer volunteers, so families who have come through the course and who are now helping again. We've worked with referral partners, including social services, health visitors, children's centres, nurseries, women's refuges, and we're now basically in a context where they are just regularly sending families to us, and we've earned trust and reputation in that context. Another thing we did was work with the council to put on lost child officers for Loughborough Fair and the Christmas light switch on. So since we started volunteering at the fair as lost child officers, we have given 278 voluntary hours of service. That works out as 11.5 days since we started doing that. So that's just, again, an incredible opportunity for us to work, reuniting lost children and vulnerable adults at a very busy and chaotic event in our town. Another context that we are really operating in at the minute is related to food poverty. So I recently became the chair of the Charnwood Food Poverty Group, which is a multi-agency group of more than 50 members from 30 plus organisations working together to ultimately eradicate food poverty in Charnwood. It's great that we're at the table. I've been invited to other events with Charnwood Borough Council to work with families and those who are aged 5 to 19. Again, just being part of conversations, forming genuine networks and being at the table of influence again in our town for those who need refuge. We also pioneered something back in the day with the help of another organisation called Welcome Boxes, which was designed to help welcome refugee families into Loughborough. We ended up training a load of people from a variety of churches, which ultimately they didn't actually ended up being used, which was a shame, but we did get to give resources to a couple of Syrian families who had resettled in Loughborough, again just working with local partners to meet local need. We've also done a couple of great things in the context of Loughborough Churches Partnership, again working with other churches, recognising that with others we can make a really big impact. A few of us put on something called civic prayer breakfasts and networking events where we worked and invited leaders from across the spheres of the town to get together to partner for the well-being of Loughborough. Our first civic prayer breakfast had more than 40 people, and then we did a networking event about 6 months later with 20 or so people, and we're looking to run another one again and see that as a really key way that we can get again into a place of influence to say how can we pray for and shape and even intercede. Some other things that we've been looking at as well has been fostering and adoption, so that was one of the heart of the first prophetic word around City of Refuge, included those who needed to be cared for. There are a number of families in Open Heaven who are exploring fostering. There are a number of families who are already adopting as well. But also about a year or so ago, we put on a fostering event for the churches in Loughborough with the local council. And we had over a dozen people from a variety of churches there. And the local authority, again, are so grateful that we would be proactive in trying to find foster carers. Jess Pym has been at the forefront of work around additional needs training and safeguarding. She put on an event, again, 18 or so people from 4 churches came to that. So we're again pioneering unity as well as City of Refuge, working with somebody from Urban Saints to equip us to better support and care for those with additional needs. We're also part of running the Community Action Subgroup for Loughborough Churches Partnership, a partnership of, at the minute, 6 different churches, trying to work again to meet local need in partnerships wherever we can. I'm sure you can see there's a bit of a theme coming on through that as well. And we've continued as well to invest in the Students' Union and our relationship there. We of course meet there every Sunday as OH1 when we're not out of term time, but also every Friday night through term time. We have had hundreds of hours of volunteer time given from our students to serve and love students at Club Mission. Thousands of students at the university, basically on a night out, often worse for wear, but always really vulnerable and looking for something. And our guys have been there to pray for them, to support them, just to provide a safe place. And it feels like that chill out room on a Friday night is like a microcosm of this City of Refuge that we're going for. We've also done a couple of years of sex and relationships input for students through something called WDM, or Waiting, Dating, Mating. And we're in a context where we're able to provide value-based input on sex and relationships to a group of students who really need it. We were also invited to put on something called Freshers Survivor Packs, where we went in and prepared a group of freshers for what it was going to be like to be in their first year of uni. The other thing that I was going to say about students is a mind-blowing story we had a couple of years ago where a group of students put on a banquet at St. Peter's for about 50 local residents, rooted on the story, the parable, Jesus' parable of the banquet, where they basically set up a room downstairs in this very building, St. Peter's, put on a roast dinner and just invited everybody and anybody on the day. 50 people came. It won an award at the Student Mission Awards with Fusion, and again was a phenomenal example of us bridging this town-gown divide of the university and the locals and serving and putting people around a table. There is genuine partnerships forming with influencers in the town, and not just influencers but providers of coal-face public services. We're becoming trusted, we're earning respect through the work that we're doing, we're meeting local need and we need to do more of it, but we're also continuing to just step out and to use this incredible resource that is St. Peter's to serve others, to be hospitable, and to make an impact. And we're just so grateful for all that you guys have done in your serving, for all the giving that has facilitated this work, for all the way that you've invested in this. And we look forward to many more years of us continuing to push into this idea of being a city of refuge. Thank you very much.
So be an open heaven. Mel has been the champion of this goal over the last 5 years, but as she's on sabbatical at the time of filming, here's a little snapshot from me on how we've seen this goal progress from an aspiration into a much greater reality in recent years. An open heaven is when we live with an acute awareness of the kingdom of heaven coming to earth. It means being naturally supernatural. It means living in the expectation of God speaking and God moving and God breaking into the here and now. So some of the ways that we have intentionally cultivated this expectation is through worship, rhythms of prayer and fasting, through boldness, and through stepping out in proclaiming and sharing the gospel. So first of all, worship. Over the last 5 years, worship in Open Heaven has gone from strength to strength. We are incredibly privileged to have such a bunch of amazing musicians and worship leaders who are not just anointed and gifted, but have Christ-like character to match up to their gift. So we've become a lot more organised. We currently have 4 bands. We have a regular worship community where all those who are involved in worship and want to connect in can gather together. We have a worship leaders forum, we have regular Jacob's ladders and worship nights, and we have a termly powerhouse, a praise party for the children. We've also had the privilege of being able to send some of our bands to serve other churches, like over to Lighthouse Church in Anglesey or to Emmanuel Church in Loughborough. And some exciting news, Sam and Isaac are stepping up into bringing the leadership of worship across Open Heaven, which is really, really good. So prayer and fasting. Prayer is essentially an act of humility, saying, God, we really need you. We can't do this without you. And we've had a number of 24/7 or 24/3 seasons of prayer as a church. We have had a season of monthly international prayer. There's been loads of prayer walking, especially on campus. A number of our students did Fusion's Escape and Pray, and then the following year did Stay and Pray. There's also been a greater commitment to fasting, which always sharpens us in terms of our prayers. There's been a greater commitment to reading the Bible, with more people doing Bible reading plans like Bible in 1 year. I'm really keen to see Bible reading become a much more integrated and normal part of our one-to-one discipleship with others. And then prophecy, we've run a school of prophecy, which about 30 people got trained up in prophecy. We've offered prophetic appointments at different leaders' days and conferences. Most Sunday gatherings across OH1 and OH2, there's a prophetic flow, or there's words of knowledge that see some remarkable healings and real breakthroughs in people's lives. And then boldness with the gospel. Club Mission continues to serve students on Friday nights throughout term, and there's increasingly stories of the gospel being shared with those students. And even more than that, students then coming along to OH1 and becoming Christians. We've had seasons of Gospel Challenge. We've been out on the streets. We've had Campus Mission, which I believe Beth is keen to do again. We've had a series on the glorious gospel. We've given out cards with the salvation prayer on for people to carry with them. And then Alpha has been so much fun over the last few years, as each year has just built on people feeling confident to bring their friends to talk about Jesus. So this year we saw about 100 people every Monday night gathering, a real vibrant buzz across the room. About half of those 100 people not yet Christians. And off the back of that then, salvation. You know, for many years we saw a steady trickle of salvation, averaging between about 5 and 10 people a year becoming Christians. And then at the start of this year, particularly in January, we began to pray with greater fervency for salvation. We began to use language like a new normal of salvation right across our leadership teams and across the staff team. And something has clearly shifted. This academic year, we've seen 24 people give their life to Jesus. That's a new normal for us. And that's something that we thank God for, and we want to continue to push into seeing more and more salvation. Essentially, it's us doing what we're put on the earth to do, fulfilling the Great Commission to make disciples who establish heaven on earth.